To Tennis Channel Live, it was a run for the ages. Wins over Sampras, Lendl, and Edberg, all at the age of 17. Michael Chang took Roland Garros by storm in 1989 to become the youngest Grand Slam champion in men's history, the first American to win the French since Tony Trayvon in 1955. So happy to welcome Michael Chang here to Tennis Channel Live. It's only been about a month since I saw you, Michael. A lot has changed since then. How have you been handling all the uncertain times right now?
I mean, we're pretty much doing what everyone else is doing. The only thing that's really different is that the kids are obviously doing their school online, which is some degree almost even harder because we've got 3 little ones. But we're staying at home doing, not going out anywhere, trying to get a little bit of tennis in, trying to get outside a little bit where we can, amidst the rain that we're having here in SoCal. But, other than that, just, pretty much staying put.
As are many right now, and that's what we have to do. When we think back, Michael, 31 years ago, last year they had the ceremony for the 30-year anniversary of your title there at Roland Garros. Is there one moment that stands out most to you during that run?
Wow. I mean, I feel like so many things happened during those 2 weeks in '89. Obviously I had the unbelievable matches with Lendl and Edberg. And then obviously, the situation in Tiananmen happened the middle Sunday of the tournament, which obviously we're watching the events unfold in the week before, and all of the time in which it happened. My match with Lendl actually happened the day after the crackdown, so there was a lot of emotion, certainly on the court, but there was a lot of emotion off the court as well. And I've often said that I think there's a reason for me being Chinese, descent, and I've always felt that God wanted me to win that tournament to put a smile upon Chinese people's faces during a time when there wasn't a whole lot to smile about. And it was a lot of very, very difficult in a lot of different ways, but certainly a very much a fairy tale tournament.
Michael, it had been a long time since an American male had made a deep run there. Mac made the finals, but long time since we'd won one. Do you remember your mindset coming into that tournament? Do you remember where you were in headspace? Were you expecting, if I made the quarterfinals, that's a good tournament? Do you remember your expectation level?
Well, sometimes, Jimbo, when you're young, sometimes you're a little bit maybe too confident sometimes. I know Jose would, obviously was training really, really hard with Jose. Actually, I trained with Pete Sampras for both '88 and the '89 French. Ironically, I ended up playing him in '89, which was a little bit tough. They ended up putting us out on center court. But, I think that for me, I remember actually asking Jose, I said, I've been working really, really hard. How well do you think I can do? And he says, well, I think it'd be, if you can make the second week, I think that would be a great tournament for you. And in my mind, I was kind of thinking, you're kind of, when you're young, you kind of don't take all these things into consideration. And I was kind of like, second week, I said, you don't think we have a chance to win? And he was kind of like looking at me, and I'm sure he was thinking, who's this little, cocky, little kid? And I would say, I obviously didn't expect to win the French Open that year. I don't think anyone expected me to do as well as I did. But just things just came together in just so many unbelievable circumstances. Cramping against Lendl in the round of 16, saving like 11 break points in the 4th set against Edberg in the finals, cramping profusely after my match with Chesnikov. I mean, there's so many things that just, shouldn't have happened where I was able to get through those matches. And it was just an incredible couple of weeks there.
Yeah, you broke down the door for our generation and showed us what was possible. And you've been now working with Kei Nishikori now for quite some time, trying to help him break down the door and have a Japanese male win a major. Can you give us an update on Kei and what's going on with him during this time?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. Obviously, Kei's been dealing with, his elbow issue. He hasn't played a tournament since the U.S. Open last year. He had surgery at the end of of the year last year, and he's back in Bradenton now, starting to hit some tennis balls, which is great. Out there working hard with Max, and obviously, with everything that's going on with the coronavirus, obviously it's a very sad time for people around the world. But in regards to Kay's tennis, the timing actually is good for him because. I think especially this year being an Olympic year, all of a sudden now the Olympics are postponed to next year. Kay now has sufficient time to kind of really get ready for the tournaments when they do start back up. He's not really rushed to get back and kind of all of a sudden be thrusted into playing all these tournaments at such a high level. So he has time now to really get healthy, get 100% healthy. Get his game back into gear. And, Kay's been down this path before, just as recently as a couple of years ago and got back to number 4 in the world. So, we're hoping that he can do the same. And, he certainly has the game to do it. And he should be, obviously very fresh, coming back out when the tour kicks back up again.
We certainly hope so. I mean, we were talking about the Olympics and potentially teaming up with Naomi Osaka. Now that's pushed to 2021. When you were on tour, Michael, I mean, it was you, it was Jim, of course, Andre, Pete. I mean, the golden era of American men's tennis. We have Andy Roddick on the show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You also crossed paths with Andy on tour. Take a listen to what he had to say about that.
Hey, I'm Andy Roddick, and I'm going to do memory lane. I walk down memory lane for each of the slams. We're going to start with Roland Garros. I did have my first ever kind of mini breakout moment at a slam where I played a match that kind of garnered a lot of attention. It was in 2001, second round against one of my heroes growing up, Michael Chang. I cramped. It was the first time I'd played a full 5-set match. Was struggling down the end, somehow toughed it out. But one of the cool moments was we shook hands, and Michael said, "Hey, listen, I cramp. I've done this before. Here's what you need to do," and kind of went point by point as to how I could best recover. It was a real lesson learned on how to be diligent and how to kind of prepare yourself going into the match.
A coach, even when you were a player, Michael. What's your reaction to hearing that?
Well, I figured, at that point, I was out of the tournament. He's an American. Obviously, all Americans want other Americans to do well. So, I wanted him to continue to do well the rest of the tournament. And obviously, I'd been down that path before and cramping in certain situations, and I know is really, really tough, especially at the French. And, trying to help him in that way. It was kind of strange, though, because when we got into the locker room, he actually jumped on the bike for about 10, 15 minutes. And in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, I was like, if I'm cramping, I would not be jumping on a bike right now. But obviously it worked for him, and he's able to do, pretty well after that. And, it was an incredible match. And I remember being in that match and thinking to myself, gosh, I have never been in a match where I've seen serves kick that high. And all the guys that I've played, it was just ridiculous how high and how deep his serve was kicking. And I remember that very, very distinctly. And obviously Andy, went on to have a phenomenal career and become number 1 in the world.
So, Michael, two things. One, did your advice include pickle juice for recovery for him when he was cramping? And 2, aren't you glad that we never had to face John Isner's kick serve?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Without question. I think for me, I was just, telling him that he needed to, drink a lot of fluids and, just recover as best he can. Because, you've been down that road as well as I have, Jimbo, that, once cramps start and, back in our day, there were no IVs. Nowadays when you're cramping, the medical team is there. They can give you an IV and your cramps are gone, really. Body cramps are gone within like 20 minutes. Back then, there was none. So you had to walk, you had to drink. And more times than not, certainly in the 89 French, when I was cramping very severely in the locker room, it would take me 2 hours to walk off these cramps. And sometimes the cramps were so bad, I was literally walking stick-legged. You go to stretch out your quad and your hamstring goes. And, And that's what happens when you have, cramps that are really a dehydration cramps, because they really hit almost every part of your body.